Designing with accessibility in mind. So what is designing with accessibility in mind and why do we do it? To put it simply, accessibility means that it can be used by everyone. And why do we need accessibility? We need accessibility in design because it increases the usability for the user. Again, accessibility means that a product or a service should be able to be used by everyone. When we talk about usability, it usually refers to the extent that a person or a user can use a certain product or a service. For example, if a product has poor usability, usually the user hasn't gotten the most he can get out of that product or service. On the other hand, if the user was able to easily use a product or a service, that most likely would mean that it had good usability. Now, when we think about accessibility in design, there's a couple things that we should keep in mind. We should consider 1. The layout, 2. Colors used, 3. The typography, and 4. The materials. If we begin by talking about the layout of a good accessible design, we can break it down into spacing and hierarchy. When it comes to spacing, there's a 50-50 ratio that should be maintained. And when I say 50-50 ratio, it just means that you keep 50% blank space on a page to 50% designer product. Moving on to hierarchy of a page layout, it would be more beneficial and increase usability if your page layout is sorted from most important to least. The next thing that makes a really good accessible design is color. Now, when it comes to choosing color, it is important to keep in mind that if you keep a 70% difference between the colors on a page, it gives us the best contrast. Also keep in mind when choosing colors for accessible design, when it comes to seniors or people with vision disabilities, try to choose colors on the warm end of the spectrum as they are easier to distinguish. Pastel colors and grays should be avoided. Moving on, another great thing to keep in mind when designing with accessibility in mind is typography. We can break typography down to 2 different subcategories, readability and legibility. When it comes to readability, just think, is it easy to follow along? Meaning, when you look at a page, is it easy to read the block of text that are there in front of you? And then when you add legibility in mind, it simply means, is the type legible? So are the words you're reading on that page easily being able to be distinguished by your eyes? That means choosing font that isn't too small and easily legible. Now, once you've made a design with accessibility in mind, it's time to print it. But what do you print it on? Well, there are different types of materials that you can keep in mind when printing with accessibility in mind. When you print, try to use paper that has a matte finish and minimizes glare and is easier for the user. Also, try choosing a paper that is a warm white instead of a bright light if a user will be using this paper or looking at this paper for an extended period of time. It's going to strain their eyes. And finally, when everything's designed and printed and you're finally ready to put it together, you can continue keeping accessibility in mind when designing